Well, hello everybody, and welcome to episode 39 of the Classic Rock Podcast. For those about to pod, we salute you. On this episode, Matt and I will be discussing the year in rock, which was 1986. What a fabulous year that is. And as it's Movember, where we raise awareness for prostate cancer, Matt and I will give you the definitive list of rockers with moustaches. We have latest news, we have hidden gems, but here he is, Mr. Maverick Matt Rogers, the Top Gun of Godstone. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Thank you. I like that. Top Gun, Maverick. That's me. Do you know what? I've never seen Top Gun.
No way. What were you doing in 1986? It was
You don't want to know. I'm probably watching Back to the Future. I probably should watch it. Yes, thank you. Yes, it was released in 1986, wasn't it?
The biggest selling grossing movie in 1986, Matthew.
Is that right?
It was indeed.
Wow. Doesn't surprise me. Had a great soundtrack as well, didn't it?
Yes.
I remember Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins. That was a tune, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, but do you remember in 1986 they also brought out the film, it seemed to be everybody wanted to be in the air. You had Top Gun and Iron Eagle.
Yeah, vaguely.
Yeah, Dio. I remember Iron Eagle because Dio was on the soundtrack.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Because had you started? No, we've established this last time. You were still at school.
I was still at school. I was still living in Northern Ireland. I was 17.
Walking around, Limavady, back patch.
Absolutely. Meatloaf, me and Meatloaf. Anyway, how are you, mate?
I'm fine. I'm doing all right, thank you. Not too bad at all. So, last time, we got a lot to get through. Let's crack on.
We have.
No jokes about jam-packed or anything like that.
Okay, what's under your hat, Matt?
I like it. So last time we were talking about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we agreed, I think, that it was quite divisive.
Yes.
We probably overused that word quite a lot. But it's done now, and it's quite interesting. Some of the footage that came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talked about Judas Priest, and the footage of them doing their 8 minutes, all that build-up, was for 8 minutes. Obviously, they were inducted as for a musical excellence award, which is great.
Yes,
good on them. Long illustrious career since 1969 or thereabouts, and they were inducted for the musical excellence award. And it was a good little set, actually. 8 minutes, little kind of medley of different songs, which is good. Living After Midnight and Metal Gods and you got Another Thing Coming, which is all great songs, of course.
Yeah.
But do you remember we were kind of slightly bemused as to why both Tim Owens, and the Falcon, Richie Faulkner, were not inducted as well, and I found out why.
Okay.
Would you like to know?
I would like to know, and our listeners too.
Indeed, all 14 of them would like to know that. So Jane Andrews, who's their manager, she apparently tried to get Richie inducted, and it all comes down to, and this is very weird, really, when you think about it. So it all comes down to whether the members played on what is deemed to be a classic album in the band's repertoire. So Les Binks, who was in with the band between 1977 and 1979, played on Stained Class, which is a good album.
Yeah.
It also played on the magnificent live album Unleashed in the East. And as a result, he was deemed to be more worthy, let's say, we're not worthy of being inducted rather than Richie Faulkner. Now, I was thinking about this, and I thought, well, in my opinion, Firepower from 2018, I think it was.
Yeah.
Is up there. I think I might have said it at the time. Not probably to you.
Yes.
But maybe to my wife or to the dog or the cats. In my mind, that was up there with one of the classic Priest albums. But anyway, such is the weird kind of protocol, let's say, of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So there you go. It's done and dusted now anyway.
So Les Binks didn't play on British Steel then?
No, it's Dave Holland.
All right. Well, and Dave was obviously posthumously.
Dave was inducted posthumously. Exactly, yeah.
But I would have said, classic albums. That's an interesting. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, as I say, those are the nuances of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, clearly. So let's not dwell on it. What I thought was also nice was Dolly Parton. Now, we all have Dolly Parton, bless her. She's turned into some sort of rock Svengali. So she's now concocting. I love this stuff. She's now kind of started to sort of concoct this rock album. And she suggested she's going to get the remaining members of Led Zeppelin back together to play on this album. Do you think that's going to happen, Brian?
You can see Robert Plant up for it. Robert Plant.
Can you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Robert Plant will definitely be up for it. It's whether Jimmy Page, because obviously Jimmy Page was invited to play on Ozzy's last album and he chose not to. Yeah. So, yeah, I think Jimmy would be the one that you would have to convince to do it. But Plenty's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, he could be doing a rock version of Islands in the Stream. Robert and Dolly.
Yeah, I could see that. More about Robert Plant later, actually.
Yeah. Oh.
But also on her rock album, I'm not sure how far it's got in terms of its development. Steve Perry is going to be singing a version, I presume as a duet with her, of Open Arms, the Journey classic.
Absolutely.
So I'm quite intrigued by all this. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that. She also did a thing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't know whether you've seen it, with doing a sort of live AD, sort of We Are the World type version. I mean, I was only able to watch probably 3/4 of it before I stopped. Of Jolene,
yeah,
which is a good song, but it was sort of one of those classic. You sing a verse, you sing the next verse. We'll all sing the chorus. Rob Halford was in there. Simon Le Bon's in there. Sheryl Crow's in there. I'm not sure to the extent actually Rob Halford sang anything particularly. He was kind of there in the background and everything. But,
he couldn't help himself. He couldn't help himself. He was. I don't think he was, as you say, he wasn't primed to sing a main verse or chorus, etc. So it was that classic case of when you were having the Live Aid chorus at the end. Rob came out in all of his metal gods regalia and put his arm around Dolly, singing into her mic, Jolene.
However, of course, we will therefore put that magnificent song on the playlist. What else you got for us, young Brian?
Yeah, there was some sad news at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Andy Taylor sadly couldn't make the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he was dead excited to be playing with his Duran Duran pals. Well, he was diagnosed 4 years ago with cancer, and he just seemed he wasn't well enough to travel, etc. So that was an announcement that Simon made as part of the speech, but they all seemed to be reconciled as a band and all on good form. But that was quite sad that Andy, and as you know, Andy's has got cancer, so that's really sad. And he was relatively active recently, writing and performing with Reef. So yeah, best wishes to Andy Taylor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Stage 4 prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Which apparently he's had for a few years. And we wish him well, of course. And we're going to come on to Movember and the money that Movember raises and the consciousness that it raises in relation to prostate cancer and testicular cancer in men. So it's kind of almost timely in a sad way that Andy has made that known, and we wish him well, as you said. Other sad news recently: we lost Dan McCafferty, the voice of Nazareth, at 70, in the age of 76. I know Dan had been not very well for a few years and had retired from singing with Nazareth. But if you grew up in the 70s, as I did, Nazareth were in a way part of the soundtrack.
Yeah.
With their take on This Flight Tonight and Broken Down Angel and and other tunes that made it into the charts, which is great. Well, sad news about Dan McCafferty. One of those kind of, we talked about Jimmy Barnes last time, but Dan McCafferty was in the same vein. One of those gravel toned.
Attack the microphone.
Exactly. Yeah. Broken glass, but fantastic singer, and a sad loss.
Yeah, very much.
And then similarly, I mentioned a few times when I was in my kind of early teens, Boomtown Rats, one of my favorite bands, and we lost Gary Roberts, guitarist from Boomtown Rats, recently. Another sad loss at 72. So again, as we often report, sad news. And we send our condolences to everyone concerned, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the Boomtown Rats they had a little bit of resurgence of late. I know that Bob and the guy they've been doing a lot of festivals, etc. So there was obviously a lot of interest in the Boomtown Rats, and they were out playing again. And another band that could be getting back together with one of their significant original members is Bon Jovi, are mooted to be headlining Glastonbury 2023, and John and Richie are talking a bit, I think is what the interweb is saying. So be interesting if Richie turns up, because I think he said in the comments that he would be quite keen to do like some special events, and Bon Jovi playing probably the biggest festival in the world, playing all of the big hits. More on that later.
Yeah, I did read that, and I hope it's true. I hope it happens. If for no other reason that Richie was in a way the second singer of Bon Jovi.
Yeah,
and I know John's had some issues with his singing style, let's say, in the last year or so. So hopefully, and if it happens, then hopefully Richie will provide that kind of support, let's say.
Yeah.
Magnificent singer. We talked about, I think we had him as a hidden gem.
Yes.
Richie Sambora, his solo work is fantastic. So well, that'd be great, wouldn't it? Yeah. They buried the hatchet. We talked about Led Zeppelin earlier, and this story caught my eye recently, and it's fantastic. Robert Plant was with his band playing a gig in Aberdeen at the Tivoli, and they decided to go to an open mic night in Aberdeen, which is great. Imagine Robert Plant turning up at your open mic night. If it's anything like our open mic nights, it kind of it goes a bit quiet about 10 o'clock. People drift away and everything. But Robert Plant turned up at this pub in Aberdeen. Magnificent name of this pub. It's called, or a bar called Under the Hammer.
Fabulous.
And, he and his band turned up. They've been playing at the Tivoli, and so how about that? I mean, imagine that, Brian. You're there, you're sinking your pint, thinking I've got work tomorrow, and in rocks Sir Robert of Plant with his band.
And can you imagine you walk out of the bar, and there's a bit like guitar shops, and it's like you've got a sign on the open mic, and it said like songs you can't sing. Yeah,
no stairway.
No stairway.
Unless you're Robert Plant.
Unless you're Robert, exactly. Yeah.
Do you find that we've had that where I live in Surrey? There's a few musos live around here. Eric Clapton's down the road, and Jimmy Page, and so on. Not anywhere near me, of course, but there's a kind of a apocryphal story that Gary Moore turned up to the late Gary Moore turned up to an open mic night somewhere in Surrey in the early 2000s, and Peter Green as well turned up as well. And you think, well, I guess, they probably would.
Yeah.
I might just pop out, love, and nip down to the Dog and Duck. I think they've got an open mic night on.
I haven't done an open mic for years, Matt, and you can just see the guy sitting down there. So what's your name, sir? Robert Plant. Do you go by Bob? Hello, ladies and gentlemen, we've got this nice young gentleman here, Bob and his band. What songs are you going to do, Bob? Bob, what is? Oh, Bob's going to do some. He's got something by a band called Led Zeppelin. I hope yeah. Oh, good luck, Bob.
Oh, dear.
Do you know what? But that's great. But Robert Plant's like that. From what we read, he still drinks in his local bar, and yeah. I love Robert Plant. Yeah.
Great man.
Now we're now getting into the announcements for next year. So so we've Steelhouse, which is one of our favorite festivals, has just announced their Saturday headliner in Airborne next year, which would be great.
Yep.
Stone Dead, which we went to for the first time this year. Blue Oyster Cult, The Answer. There's a few bands.
Yep.
But the 20th anniversary of Download this year, Matthew, 4 days. What do you think of the lineup?
Well, I'm waiting to see what else emerges, frankly, because I looked at the lineup and thought, I'd like to see Metallica, I'd like to see Ghost, and that pretty much is it for me. The rest of the bill looked very obscure from my perspective, but as you know, I do surf along the top of the classic rock genre and don't really delve too deep. But I'll probably go for a day or two. I think my wife wants to go, so I think we'll probably go for a while. You fancy coming? To banish those memories of 2017 when you drowned in your own tent.
Yes, the return from Download. I'd love to see Slipknot. Slipknot were a shoe-in for Download this year. I'd like to see Slipknot. I do feel slightly shortchanged for the fact that Metallica are playing 2 nights. And I just thought, guys, we weren't able to get Motley Crue or Def Leppard. They're going to do their own thing. Can you do an extra night? We'll chuck you another 50 quid and, do what you like. Yeah. But like you, I am mulling it over at the moment. There's probably 2 nights, and I don't know. Bring Me the Horizon. They're one of the new up and coming bands. They're in that kind of.
They've probably been going 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. So no, but there's so much more of the bill has got to be announced, and usually with one of the days at Download, you're going, when's the classic rock day? Where's that day? And I'm kind of going, of all of the 3 headliners there, only Metallica really you could say is the closest to classic rock. In Motley Crue news, which we seem to be discussing every show, Matthew, we were discussing John 5 replacing Mick Mars in Motley Crue, certainly from a touring perspective. Next year, probably the worst kept secret on the rock interweb in the last month. I read somewhere, and it's gaining a little bit of momentum, that Vince Neil might be replaced by Scott Stapp from Creed.
Yeah, I can't believe that.
I'm the same as you. I'm kind of going, when I listen to, you listen to the high register of girls. Vince is quite a high voice. So I'm kind of thinking you need like a Sebastian Bach or, somebody of that high register. Scott Stapp's a baritone, and his lovely, soulful, deep voice for Creed. It just was like, is Nicky and Tommy having a bit of fun with the internet going, why did we put this out?
I think there might be. If anything, you're right. Maybe, someone like a Sebastian Bach who would obviously jump at the chance, or bring back John Corabi. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I thought Vince Neil, based on recent performances, is in good form.
He is, yeah.
Not sure why they would choose Scott Stapp. I love Scott Stapp, fantastic singer.
Oh yes, he's great.
But not sure he's a good replacement, as you say, stylistically for Vince Neil. But of course, we will see. Yeah. We'll be surprised by anything, won't we? Yeah. Colouring books and ABC books and 17-string basses and everything.
What?
It's all happening.
17-string basses. Who's playing with 17-string basses?
These segues are getting too good, Brian. So ZZ Top. This caught my eye as well. So the new bass player from ZZ Top, the magnificently named Elwood Francis.
Yes.
Wasn't that a character in the Blues Brothers?
Elwood certainly was.
Indeed. Anyway, Elwood Francis is the replacement for the dear departed Dusty Hill. So a recent ZZ Top gig is he pulled out a 17-string bass. Now, even I know most basses have got 4 strings, maybe 5 strings.
5 strings,
or even 8 strings. But 17 string basses. He played it for this song "Got Me Under Pressure" from the Eliminator album. Any ideas, Bri? 17-string bass. I mean, to be fair, we have seen some weird and wonderful guitars over the years.
Yes.
Steve Vai, Rick Nielsen, even the sort of the double, triple neck, John Paul Jones, mandolin, bass, and guitar, or whatever it was. But a 17-string bass, isn't that? I mean, we're getting into this real Spinal Tap territory again, aren't we?
Yeah, I think the only reason is probably wanting to put his back under pressure, because I'm sure it's a big, massive thing, and it's not very. Yeah, there must have been like a Guinness World Records attempt to say, is it here's the largest concert played with a 17-string bass. So Matt, any new music for this episode?
Yes, funny you should ask. So yeah, I've been listening to a few new albums actually. The new album from Cardinal Black, a band we saw in the summer actually, didn't we?
We did. Steelhouse.
The Steelhouse. An album called January Came Close, and I think we liked them, didn't we? The good singer, but the magnificent Chris Buck on guitar. However, what did you think of the album January Came Close?
Oh, right? I guess so. You tee it up, and then you're right.
Exactly. That's how it works.
That's how it works. Tom Hollister, the singer, he has got a very soulful 80s CeeLo Green. It's a really soulful singer. And Chris Buck, it really felt to me that it's a well-produced album. I have to say, for a debut album for any band, it's very mature, it's well-produced. And the band's been going for like 10 years on and off, you know.
That's right.
But it just felt out of place genre-wise for me. It felt like an 80s album. It felt like it was... If this was released in the mid-80s alongside Go West and Mike and the Mechanics, and it had that a light feel to it, and that sort of soulful voice of Tom. I was just kind of going, I'd love listening to that and driving in the car, you know, listening to the Miami Vice soundtrack, and I'll stick on Cardinal Black. It just feels out of time a little bit. But the first 3 tracks on the album, Rise Up, Where Do You Go, or Tell Me How It Feels, they're really good songs, but it just needed a little bit more oomph for me, Matt. So yeah, like a 7 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, but I tend to agree. It's not a rock album,
no,
as it were. I think it's more of a soul blues, kind of R&B almost album. I quite enjoyed it. You're right. It's a bit kind of. I think we mentioned a couple of times the sort of music you play on a Sunday morning. You had a couple of drinks the night before, maybe overindulged a little bit. You put that on.
Yes,
it'd be a nice album to kind of mellow you out.
Yeah,
as it were. But you're right. I liked it. I'll listen to it again. A magnificent voice.
Oh yeah,
Tom Hollister, Chris Buck, just one of the best guitarists of the last few years. Worth checking out.
I think so.
January Came Close by Cardinal Black.
And they've just been out touring with Peter Frampton.
I mean that's quite cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
To tell your grandkids you're out with Peter Frampton, the great Peter Frampton.
Yeah.
So a new album from Massive Wagons is out.
Yeah.
Called Triggered. What do you think about that, Bri?
I really enjoyed it, Matthew. And I think, as you've said, have you said before on the show when we've listened to some albums, I wouldn't play this record to you, Granny.
No. Ask Granny to leave the room.
Certainly for the first song.
Well, they've got a radio edit, which is "Forget the Haters."
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah,
which is probably more granny friendly, of course.
What massive wagons, granny friendly.
It's a very angry. Not angry. Is angry the right word? There are some there's some songs which are kind of almost directed at certain elements of society. Forget the Haters. You mentioned. There's another one which we can't mention either. And one or two others, Triggered and Germ. There's a theme running through this album, but
yes,
it's a good album all the same. It's very dominated by Baz Mills's lyrics.
Yes,
probably more so than the last couple of albums. I absolutely loved The House of Noise from 2021, I think it was. This to me is not quite there, not quite to the same level. Doesn't have the immediate songs that album had, but still got some good songs. As you said, Forget the Haters.
Yeah.
Please Stay Calm's good. Generation Prime with Benji Webb from Skin Dreads on there.
I love that song actually. Generation Prime was a banging tune.
Yeah, that's a good album. Check it out. And they've been on tour recently with Ugly Kid Joe. And they're destined for big things, massive wagons.
I listened to that album, Matt, and I know you're a big fan of Massive Wagons. When I listened to the album, I thought it's really energetic, and the only way I can describe them is they seem to be this perfect mixture of Blink-182 and Slade.
Oh yeah,
I've kind of got this, you know, the way when Slade in the 80s came back with Wall of Sound and the production, and there was just an energy about the Triggered album. You listen to it the whole way through, and I couldn't stop tapping my feet. But then you listen to the seriousness of the lyrics as well too. You know, yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed the Massive Wagons album. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. So we come to Belly of the Beast by Jolyn Turner, which this is my album of the year so far. Absolutely fantastic.
Really?
I love every song on this album. I've played it to death. And it's going to take some beating as far as I'm concerned. Some great songs on it. Black Sun, Tortured Soul, Don't Fear the Dark, the title track itself, Belly of the Beast. It's got that kind of, it's sort of throwback to that Yngwie Malmsteen kind of era, stylistically in a way. And there's plenty of big keyboards in there and everything. But I think you said before, Jolyn Turner's got that voice. He can sing the kind of the this sort of 80s sort of melodic rock stuff, but this is quite rock in places. It's great stuff. Jolyn Turner, Belly of the Beast. What did you think of it, Bri?
I was really surprised. I'm a massive Jolyn Turner fan, and the album that he did with Yngwie Malmsteen, the Odyssey album, and then when he was working with Frontier Records,
another pound in the pot for you. Mentioning them.
He put a project together called Sunstorm, and the debut album of Sunstorm is just classic Survivor. It's just that classic melodic rock. And I listened to this album, Matt, and I went, the first couple of tracks, it was like symphonic metal. It was really it was really heavy for Joe. I'm and I thought the production and his vocal was phenomenal. Like his vocal performance, he's 70 years of age.
I know. Brilliant.
And as you say, the track that stood out, two tracks that stood out for me in the album, you've mentioned one of them, which was Black Sun. And that was so Deep Purple. There was Hammond organ, and the vocal that came through, and then there was touches of Rammstein. They sort of like it didn't detract from how great the songs were. And then the last track on the album, when you think you've gone through all of the power metal, like this, the European festivals are just going to eat this up. You know, you could see. We've talked about, Primal Fear and Hammerfall and Sabaton in previous episodes. This'll just people in Europe, that sort of Euro power metal, they'll just eat up this album. And you're in that sort of, right, this is how the album's going. And then you get a track called Requiem at the end. And it's just fabulous. So it wasn't the album I thought you were going to pick as your album of the year, if I'm being honest. But I'm really surprised that Joe's just taken that turn and gone heavy and dark.
Absolutely. And by the way, we just invented a new genre, Euro power metal.
Euro power metal.
I like it.
Euro power metal. Yeah.
I like it. So have a listen, everyone. I think you'll like those 3 albums. Very different, but all good. Still the same.
Good.
So, Brian, last time I gave you the year 1986 in my year in rock.
Thank you.
Make of it. You're welcome.
1986, Matthew. I was 17 years of age. I could drive a car.
Really?
Yeah, I could drive a car.
Were you kind of legally able to drive a car?
I was. Yes, I was.
Decided you were going to drive a car.
Yeah. I passed my driving test on a Friday afternoon. And my driving instructor said to me when I was driving home, Brian, would you like to go and see Queen at Slane Castle on Sunday? And I had the choice of going to Slane to see Queen or going out probably for the weekend driving my dad's car. What did I decide to do, Matthew?
Went driving in your dad's car.
I did. I missed the opportunity of going to see Queen in 1986. What a nightmare.
But apart from that, anything else you want to tell us about 1986 wise?
86 gigs were light for me. In 1986, I went to see 2 notable bands in 1986. I went to see the wonderful Big Country, who were touring the Sear album. I went to see them in Templemore Sports Complex. Great venue, Matt.
I can imagine. Sounds great.
Yeah, there was maybe about 50 of us there. No, it was great. Big Country always played a good show. And I went to see Mama's Boys. Mama's Boys played as they always did. The 3 pieces they wear. They were fantastic. So those were my 2 gigs in 1986. But what a year, Matthew, for albums. I am just going to kick off. I'm going to pick some of the albums that I know you haven't picked because I know you'll have some of the other big selling albums. So I'm going to kick off in 1986 with probably the album Slippery When Wet. The album that Bon Jovi have never been able to surpass, beat. New Jersey nearly got there. It's a good album, but Slippery When Wet. I bought the blue vinyl 12-inch single of You Give Love a Bad Name, and I was in, Matt. So Slippery When Wet is the first album of 1986 for me. I then am going to pick the debut album by a band, and I know you'll go, really? A band from the UK and from England, the Cutting Crew.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to go for the Cutting Crew.
Really?
I'm going to still, no matter how many times you say really, I am going to say Broadcast by Cutting Crew. And it is, obviously it has the big singles, I've Been in Love Before and Died in Your Arms, but there's some rocking tracks on that as well too. And it's an AOR, MOR album, but 1986, it was just fabulous. I had a real, and I'll be interested in you viewing this, the number 3 album for me, Eat 'Em and Smile by Dave Lee Roth. And it's funny because over the years, obviously Dave put his stellar band together with Billy Sheehan and Greg Bissonette and Steve Vai, and then the Van Halen boys then released 5150. And if you'd have said to me in 1986, I would have been, yay, I'm in with Dave. Dave's my favourite. And you were to ask me as a slightly older man in 2022, what my favourite album between 5150 and Eat 'Em and Smile is, I would probably say 5150. I think it's a better album. It's a better piece of work, and it's Dave's got loads of cover versions on it, and Van Halen just became Van Hagar. So so that was kind of, and then the final one I'm going to mention, and this was a big album for me because I remember trying to sing it and I sounded like sounded awful trying to sing it, was Boston's third album, Third Stage. It was just a fabulous album. Cool the Engines, Hollyanna. The big single off the album in America was Amanda, but it just picked up where Boston had left off in the first two albums, and that was 1986 kind of for me, mate. I've got loads of other albums as well too, but that's just a short pick of some of the great albums from 86. I hope you have got some equally brilliant albums to pick from 86, because there's so many to choose from.
Well, I've got a couple. It's funny you should mention Queen, because gigs wise for me, I, like you, missed out on seeing Queen in 1986 on the kind of Magic tour, I think it was.
Yeah.
So I was 21 in 1986, and a lot of my friends were having 21st get-togethers, and I was in Plymouth when I should have been at Queen at Wembley Stadium. And you know what it's like? You kind of think, oh, it's okay, I'll see him next time round.
Yeah.
But there was no next time round, was there?
No.
And I was very much similar to you in that I missed out on that, what became a kind of an iconic tour year after Live Aid. Also went to see Iron Maiden that year, and they released the magnificent Somewhere in Time album. Put a few songs from that. We put a few songs from that on last time's playlist, actually. But I did a thing that I've never done, actually. So I went down to Hammersmith Odeon with a friend of mine, Adam Piatek. Hello, Adam, if you're listening. And we went up to the box office and said, "You got any returns?" And which you never do now, because there's no such thing as, the box office is like, well, we have a word with Ticketmaster sort of thing. And we got 2 tickets in the stalls. Sorry, got 2 tickets in the Circle. And we saw the fantastic Somewhere in Time tour at Hammersmith Odeon, which is great. Also went to see Meridian's Garden Party at Milton Keynes Bowl. So Meridian in 1986 were huge.
Yeah.
They were on a crest of a wave with Kaylee, and they've had a steady set of albums through the early 80s. And I look back on that, and I was looking at the bill, and the bill was Mama's Boys, you mentioned earlier. Gary Moore was on the bill. Jethro Tull was special guests. Magnum were on the bill. It was quite a gig from what I remember. Albums wise, you mentioned some good ones. So by Peter Gabriel, that was a mega album, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. With
Sledgehammer and Don't Give Up with Kate Bush. We mentioned Sleeping When Wet. We mentioned Somewhere in Time. August was probably by Eric Clapton, was probably the last album I bought on vinyl before CDs kicked in. I remember buying that album at the time. You're right, there's so many albums in 1986. Who Made Who by AC/DC, Turbo by Priest, Orgasmatron by Motorhead, Rain in Blood by Slayer. There were three sort of thrash albums from the big four that year: Slayer's Rain in Blood, Megadeth's Peace Sells But Who's Buying, and the magnificent, still good, Master of Puppets by Metallica. We'll put some songs from all those albums on the playlist. But I mean, it went away too many. Even Bruce Hornsby brought out The Way It Is, which of course they had that song which was everywhere. The title song in 1986. So yeah, an incredible year. country music. But there's one album you haven't mentioned, Brian,
I know.
which was released on the 26th of May, 1986. Do you remember it? Do you remember that day?
I don't, Matt, because I didn't buy the album in 1986. I know the album you're talking about. You're talking about The Final Countdown by Europe. Which just went absolutely stratospheric on the release of the single Final Countdown. It was, yeah. I went nuts for Europe in 1987.
How did you? Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
It still counts.
It still counts. It's a great,
It is a good album. They still do some songs from that in their set, don't they?
Yeah, Cherokee, Rock the Night.
Yeah.
Fabulous. What a way to finish off 1986 with Europe.
Good stuff. It was almost the soundtrack of 1986, wasn't it? That song, Joey Tempest's Hair.
Yes.
Tremendous.
Exactly.
Tremendous.
Surprised they didn't make it onto the soundtrack of Top Gun.
It's true, actually. Yeah. Anyway, that was 1986. A very much a whistle-stop tour through one of the greatest years in rock.
And I'm giving you what probably is an even better year, Matt, next episode.
Is that right?
Well, I hope it's better than 2000. That's all. That's all we can hope for. I'll give you 2007, Matt.
Thank you. And that will be episode 40.
Episode 40, yes.
Episode 40. Right. So, Brian, we are in the middle of November.
We are.
As you know. And November is also known as Movember, where a lot of men grow moustaches to raise money for research into prostate cancer and testicular cancer. And we like to feel we're part of that. And as such, we're going to talk about, very quickly, our favourite moustaches in rock.
There is a genre.
There is indeed a genre. Can you hear the bottom of that barrel being scraped by?
Moustache rock.
And there's been some great moustaches, hasn't there, Brian?
There has indeed. Not from me, though, Matthew. I do not suit a moustache.
No.
I've been a Mobro, and it's not a good look for me.
Really?
There are others that we will talk about who do suit a moustache. And more importantly, when you take the moustache off them, they lose their rock powers.
Yes. We'll come to that.
We will do.
It's funny, actually. You say that. You're right. There's a lot of rock stars, men, obviously,
Yeah.
who are synonymous with their tash.
Yes.
And without it, you probably wouldn't even recognize them.
Yes.
We'll put a few pictures of with and without on Facebook. Not many, but we will put a few on there.
Okay.
So who you got on your list then, Brian? We'll have a few notable mentions, of course.
Okay.
Number 3. Go on.
Number 3 for me. The number 3 for me, and this, if you go onto his website, I think he actually has, it's sort of silhouetted out. I'm going with Frank Zappa.
Wow.
Yeah. Frank Zappa had, he had a cool moustache.
He had a magnificent moustache.
And I've never seen Frank Zappa without a moustache. There you
go. No. Yeah, and he had the matching soul patch.
That's it.
Wow. Yeah, great guy. Fantastic. Well, that's a good excuse. Put some Frank Zappa on.
Oh my goodness! Thank goodness you're doing the playlist these days.
Yeah. No problem with that, my friend. It's a good shout, actually.
What about you?
I'm going to go. Well, I'm going to cast our minds back to the late 70s, where men wore kimonos and sat behind and were proud of it and played progressive 12-minute long songs just for the sake of it. And I'm going to go with 70s Neil Peart, who had one of the greatest, almost double moustaches, really. Had the kind of the waxed sort of wingtips and then the droopy kind of Zapata bit to go with it. So I'm going to go with 70s Neil Peart.
70s Neil Peart
as one of the most iconic moustaches ever. You got number 2.
Yeah, to segue from Neil Peart to this next guy, to be joined and bridged only by a moustache. This man is rock and roll as far as I'm concerned.
Is it Derek Smalls from Spinal Tap?
No, it's not Derek Smalls. This is Ian Lemmy Kilminster.
Good choice. Good choice.
Lemmy just didn't look like Lemmy without it. He did it. Remember, he shaved it off in the mid-80s, in the 80s and stuff. He just did. Lemmy just he perfected the handlebar moustache.
Yeah, I remember when I first got into Motorhead in about 1979. He had everything, and the long bits around the side. Missed out the chin.
Yeah, but
kept the rest. The kind of the mutton chops, the moustache.
Yeah,
and so on. Fantastic, iconic look.
It was. Yeah. Lemmy's my number 2, Matt. So we've gone from Neil Peart to Lemmy. Where are you taking us to now?
Well, there's only one place to go, really, isn't there? So it's me, Tony Iommi.
I thought you were going to say Bob Carroll. G's there.
That's me, Tony Iommi. So Tony Iommi grew a moustache. Apparently, he got a scar on his top lip when he was very young. He went through the wars, Tony Iommi, didn't he? Cutting his fingers off, scar on his lip, and so he grew a moustache. And there is footage of Tony without a moustache in that sort of California Jam 1974 era. But me and Geezer, we had moustaches throughout the 70s. And he's developed it into the goatee now, of course.
Yeah.
So, number 2, the great Tony Iommi.
Uh-huh.
I have a feeling we've both got the same number 1, Bri.
There is only one singing moustache.
Absolutely.
And that is Freddie.
Indeed.
Freddie
Mercury. What a moustache he had. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Iconic.
Yeah, because I remember when I saw the video for Barcelona with Montserrat Caballé and Freddie, singing Barcelona, and he didn't have a tash then, and you're kind of going, what, who's this? And then he was doing the Great Pretender, and I'm like going, right. Get your tash back on and do One Vision and a kind of magic. He needed his tash to rock.
Get your tash back on. Right, notable mentions, Brian, quickly.
Oh, yes. Jimi Hendrix.
Yes, indeed. Sort of, was he noted for his moustache? He had one, of course, didn't he?
He did. Well, okay, fair enough. Okay, really notable moustaches. Okay, John Oates from Daryl Hall and John Oates.
That's a great shout.
Yeah.
I shall go with John Lord. John Lord wore a moustache, and then
tremendous,
the magnificent keyboard player from Deep Purple, of course. Sadly, no longer with us. And but he had a fantastic Zapata moustache. Good old John Lord. God bless him.
Yeah.
Mentioned Neil Peart. Your man Phil Lynott. He had that kind of like pencil thin.
Yeah.
Moustache, didn't he?
And he didn't look right without one either.
No, indeed. David Crosby of Crosby, Stills and Nash. He was once asked. He's got a very big bushy moustache.
Yeah.
And I find this hard to believe. I think he might have had his tongue in his cheek when he said this. So someone asked him on Twitter, what is the secret to growing a bushy moustache? And Crosby replied, kiss pretty women a lot. I think David was maybe, pulling out of respective legs there. Or maybe he wasn't. But David Crosby, he's got a fantastic moustache. Who else you got, Brian?
Let's take it into the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I think James Hetfield. 80s and 90s. Hetfield for a while. He did the handlebars and the moustache for a while.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Hetfield, let's bring it up because, yeah.
That's a good shout.
And
And then finally, I think you and I were on the same wavelength for this one, weren't we? Because we talked about Sparks a few times on the old podcast.
Yes.
Ron Mayle. He had that strange toothbrush moustache. We won't dwell on it particularly, but
Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin, very good. Yes, we'll go with that. Anyway, that's our bit for Movember. If you're growing a moustache, good on you. If you raise a lot of money,
Yes.
if someone you know is growing a moustache for Movember, donate to fantastic charities, and we wish everyone well. And that's our little bit for this very worthy cause. So, Brian, it comes to the final part of the old podcast, as usual.
Hidden Gems Eyes.
Thanks, Lola, as always. Good stuff. Appreciate it. What you got for us, Brian?
I am going with an album, Matt, that I have just listened to recently on my returns. On my returns from my adventures down south, off to see Porcupine Tree.
Yeah, how was that, by the way?
It was very good. It was very sold out. It was very long, 3-hour show with Porcupine Tree.
Wow.
And the sound was amazing. Gavin Harrison was great. Stephen Wilson was fab. And yeah, they were really, really good. And everybody that I seemed to travel with the whole way down from Edinburgh to London and back, when they asked me where I was going, I said, I'm going to see Porcupine Tree. Sold out show in Wembley Arena. And the answer, as you can imagine, was...
Who?
Exactly. So, on my travels, I was traveling with lots of my musical pals. And on the way back up, we were discussing with my pal Ed Lindsay, podcaster 4.
Hello, Ed.
And Ed, we were talking about some great new music and great old music. And Ed took me to an album by a band called Gamma. Do you remember Gamma, Matt?
I do. Late 70s.
Yeah. So Gamma was the band that Ronnie Montrose put together after Montrose disbanded and Montrose famously had Sammy Hagar and Denny Carmassi. So Ronnie put a band together with a Scottish singer called Davy Pattinson, who ended up singing with Robin Troyer, even did a stint with Michael Schenker for a while. Anyway, the band that Ronnie Montrose put together was called Gamma, and Gamma's debut album is absolutely fabulous. I've been listening to it, the first 3 tracks, Thunder and Lightning, I'm Alive, and Razor King. I've never heard it before, Matt. It just sounds like Lou Gramm on vocal. It just has that melodic rock, just meat and potatoes, good AOR melodic rock. I never heard it before. Fabulous. Track I'm Alive was just phenomenal. Loved it. So my hidden gem for this episode, courtesy of my pal Ed, is Gamma.
Very good. Well done, Ed. Nice recommendation.
Yeah, very.
So, Brian, I've got a documentary or a rockumentary, if you will,
Good.
that my wife and I watched this weekend, strangely enough. And my wife is a big, as am I, a big Pearl Jam fan. And this is Pearl Jam 20. It's a 2011 film directed by the fantastic Cameron Crowe, who I didn't know actually lived in Seattle in the mid 80s through the early 90s. And this is essentially a story, or the story of Pearl Jam from the embers of Mother Love Bone through the sort of the reincarnation, let's say, which was Pearl Jam, but also kind of shadows the growth of grunge with appearances from Soundgarden, from Alice in Chains, Nirvana in there, and so on. And it's a really good watch. Needless to say, Cameron Crowe's got his kind of sort of traditional sort of stamp on it.
Yeah.
But it flows quite nice. There's loads and loads of footage. Apparently he sifted through 12,000 hours of footage. There's MTV stuff in there. There's all sorts. And it's a really good watch. And if you're a Pearl Jam fan, or indeed just a fan of music, check it out. It's really good. It's on Sky Arts at the moment. And well worth a look. You've seen it, I imagine, Brian.
I have seen it. It is, as you say, you don't need to be a massive Pearl Jam fan to enjoy the movie. The story of Andrew Wood's demise. He was very, very close. He shared a flat with Chris Cornell.
That's right.
They were very, very close. And then obviously Temple of the Dog was kind of Eddie's introduction to the scene. And then they put Pearl Jam together. And my abiding memory of the movie is Pearl Jam was Stone Gossard's band at the start. And then by the time you get through to the maybe the mid-90s, the early 2000s, there's Eddie's taking real artistic. And then as they get into the 20 years of their career, which is what the movie's about, you can see where they're all really, really comfortable with what Pearl Jam has become, standing up against Ticketmaster and, writing a different set list for every night and maybe not rehearsing it. They really are the epitome of a band that works at who they are and what they do. It's a really good shout and a great documentary.
Absolutely. Pearl Jam 20, check it out. So that, Brian, was episode 39.
Fabulous. Boom.
Indeed, boom. So check us out on Facebook and Instagram and occasionally on Twitter at FTAT Pod. Thanks for listening, everyone. Next time we'll be back with our rock-related Christmas presents. Won't we, Brian?
We will indeed.
That'd be nice. Better start working on that now. Will there be any colouring books involved or ABC books?
Probably ABC books.
Yeah, looking forward to it. All right. Till next time.
Yeah, enjoy the World Cup. Everybody, whoever you're supporting, maybe one of our listeners' countries might win the World Cup.
Not mine.
Definitely not mine.
See you, everyone. Bye.
See you on. Bye.
Close Back to Pod, we salute you is a Maylee Rogers production.